Hello, so today I'll be showing you how you could make some painterly kind of effects using Houdini, and we'll be exporting them and rendering inside Cinema 4D. So let's get started. So before we get started, I just want to explain what we are going to do in Houdini. So in this illustration, we just have a sphere, and on top of the sphere, we'll be scattering some points. So using these points, we can generate some normal directions that we can later align our grids to. So with that out of the way, let's try and replicate this in Houdini. So let's go in and add a GeoNode, and in the GeoNode we'll add in a file. So I'm going to be adding this car model that I found on 3D Warehouse. So let's add a subdivide node and we'll subdivide the mesh. So let's increase the depth size to 2, and I'm going to change the algorithm to open subdiv loop. So by default, what Catmull Clark will do is that it's going to subdivide our triangles into quads. So on this mesh which has a lot of triangles, I switch to open subdiv loop, and that will just subdivide our triangles into even more triangles. Let's add an attribute from ramp and we'll select the texture map. So this will apply the texture from the UVs to our points. So right now our texture is kind of looking blurry. So to fix that, we can go to the subdivision and we can increase the depth size. So by increasing the subdivision, we are adding more points to the geometry, and these points will store the color attribute from the attribute from map. So if you want more detailed texture on your mesh, you can increase the subdivision, but for now I'll leave it at 2. So let me go ahead and visualize the normals right now. So I'll do that by clicking that button over there. And we'll add a normal node so that we can add some normals to the points. So we can change the add normals to points, and we can see that all of our points have normals facing outwards. And let's add a scatter node and scatter some points. And we can see that our scatter points have those normals. So let's increase the scatter count to something high. And we can also see that our color data from the mesh has been transferred to the scatter points. So now let's copy some grids to our points. So to do that, let's add in a grid, and we'll reduce the row and columns to 2 so that we just have one single polygon. And let's stretch it out in one dimension. So I'm just increasing the Y length. So let's add in a transform node, and after that I'll be adding a UV unwrap. So this is going to be unwrapping our grid. So we'll connect the grids to the first input and we'll connect the scatter to the second. So right now our grids are currently too big. So in the transform node, we can just decrease the uniform scale to something low. And also our grids are not oriented in the right way. So we can just change the rotation in the grids. So we can see that all of our grids are aligned to the surface normals. And we can also see that the colors have been transferred to them as well. So let's add an attribute randomize, and we'll change the attribute name to n so that we can randomize our normals. And we'll change the distribution type to normal. I found that this distribution type works best. So let's connect that back to the scatter node, and we'll just change the global scale to something low, and make sure the operation type is set to add value. In that way, we are just applying the randomization on top of the existing normals. So the more you increase the global scale, the more chaotic and random the normals become. So let's keep that to something low and subtle. So for that, I'll just keep it at 0.3. So next step, we'll be randomizing the p-scale value. So for that, I'll add another attribute triangle and change the attribute name to p-scale. So using the p-scale, we can drive the scale of our grids. So let's set that to custom ramp, and we'll be making a custom ramp. So I'm just playing around the ramp. I'm just trying to get as many scaling variations that I can, because in traditional paintings, you can notice that the painting might have small brush strokes, or medium sized, or maybe even like large brush strokes. So I'm just trying to get those large strokes by having some few large grids. So we can affect the frequency of these large strokes by increasing or decreasing the position. And let's go back into the scatter node, and we'll give this expression $F. So this means that on every frame, the seed is going to change. So to export, we'll just go back to the scatter node first and increase the count to something high so that we can get a more higher quality result. And we'll just add in a normal node to fix any normal issues that we might have. And also I'll be adding an attribute delete. So if we middle click on the normal node, we can see that we have a p-scale value that we don't really need. And once we export this, it's going to add upon our file size. So we'll just delete that attribute p-scale since we don't need it. So I'll just type in p-scale in the point attribute of the attribute delete. And we can see that our P scale is no longer there. Let's connect that to the ROP Alembic output and let's change it to render frame range. And we can right click and delete the end frame range, and I'll add something like 45. So it's just going to save the animation from frame 1 to 45. So that's no issue. We can loop this animation in Cinema 4D. And let's save it by clicking that button over there, and just make sure you add in the extension .abc at the end to save it out as an Alembic file. And once we are done, we can just go ahead and save it to disk. So let's import the model to Cinema 4D, and also I'll be using Redshift for this purpose, but it can work in any render engine. So let's increase the scale size to something high. And if I click on that Alembic tag, we can see that our color data is being stored on each grid. So using this, we can make a shader later on. So if I hit play, we can see that our animation stops at frame 45. So to loop it, we can just change the mode to loop. And now we can see that our animation will be looping forever. So here I'm just setting up the lighting. So I'm just adding a dome light and one area light. So in the material, I'll be adding a vertex attribute, and I'll just drag and drop that Alembic tag into the attribute name. And we can use that color data and we'll feed that into the diffuse color. And also I'll be feeding it into the translucency channel so that we can get some sort of a subsurface scattering effect. So right now our color is too dark. So we can just fix that by adding a color correct, and we can plug that into the input, and we'll just increase the gamma a bit, and we can plug that back into the diffuse color and the translucency color. Also I'll be just increasing the roughness a bit and changing the IOR value. So let's add in the alpha mask to the opacity channel. So for some reason in Redshift, opacity doesn't work well when you have multiple stacks of geometry on top of each other. I think it's just the limitation of Redshift. So you can see that if I just add in a grid, you can see that we can look through the mesh, but we can fix that to some extent by going to the optimization and increasing the refractions and the combined. It does fix to some extent, but this adds a lot on our render times. So we can just revert that back to something low. And to fix this, we can just add in a sprite node. So this sprite node will work well when you have multiple, stacks of geometry on top of each other. And we can copy the same image to the sprite, and I'll just delete that texture for the opacity channel. So right now our alpha is too big. So I'm just changing the texture repeat to 0.3. I've tested this before. So these are the settings that work well for me. So I'm just increasing the tiles to 5 in the material tag. We can see that we are starting to get that oil painting kind of a look. And also by using the sprite node, it renders much faster and it's more noise free. So we can play with the texture repeat from the sprite node, and we can also play around with the tiles from the material tag. And using this combination of two, we can get different looking strokes. So right now we can see that our strokes are a bit too small, but it looks still fine. It could be used for some different kind of effect, but you have to play around with these values because it greatly depends on the grid size that you exported from Houdini. So that's pretty much it. That's the end of the tutorial. So if you have some doubts, you can comment them down below. I'll try answering them. So that's been it, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Take care.